Happy New Year, everyone. It's January 1st, and it's day 11 of the 12 Days of Celtic Mythology, Season 4. So we're just about at the end, although we still have a few stories left. So I also just want to say, for everyone who's watching this series, that I've been putting links to where you can read the stories I've been telling in the video description each day. But I've been forgetting to mention it. So I'm sorry about that, but they are there. They'll be there forever. I hope some of you have found them, but if there's a story you're wondering about, go back and look at the day when I told it, and you'll find a link. I'm talking about the bit under each video where you can click the word more, yeah? Okay, so have you been thinking about salmon and shape-shifting and ancient knowledge? I plan to come back to this once more in tomorrow's episode. So, just for your own good, for your own learning, maybe go back and look at the questions and answers from days 1 and 3 and 6, where we've already talked about this stuff, and think about whether you feel like you've gained any new insight. Yesterday, I told you a bit of the first branch of the Mabinogi about the birth of Rhiannon's son, Pryderi, and how he was found in the doorway of Ternon's house at the same time a foal was born. Funnily enough, not many of you mentioned the doorway in your answers to the question. Yet it's an important detail that's repeated in the story of the birth of Cuchulainn, with the birth of the twin foals in the doorway during his birth. I thought I emphasized that a bit yesterday and why it's important. I don't know, maybe that's why people didn't put it in their answer, because I'd already emphasized it. Because I often say in my classes, don't be afraid to state the obvious. Me telling you, and then, you telling it back to me or telling somebody else, that's really how you get knowledge to stick. And this brings me to today's question. And it's a chance for you to ask me a question. So maybe you have a question about my classes. Is a certain class okay for beginners? Most of them are. Or you wonder about what will be expected of you as a student, or you're just not clear about some detail about the classes, how they work, what they're like. Maybe you want to know whether I'll be covering some particular thing in a certain class, or when I'm planning on offering one of the classes that I haven't listed the dates for yet. There are no silly questions here, or in my classes. So I'd like also to ask people who've taken classes with me to answer other people's questions with your own experiences, if you don't mind doing that in the comments for this video. If you just don't have any questions about the classes at all, that's okay. Then tell me about the class that you're thinking of signing up for if you complete the challenge and why you picked it. And it's okay if you change your mind over the next few days and actually end up asking for a different class. It's not like this isn't the moment of your final choice. So before I tell you today's story, I need to fill you in on a few details from the first branch of the Mabinogi that I didn't include yesterday. You'll remember that I hinted that Pwyll and Rhiannon didn't find it easy to get married. In those days, there was no wedding ceremony. Weddings were solemnized by holding a big feast, which went on for days if you were noble and rich, and by the couple consummating the marriage, sometimes with witnesses. Well, they got as far as starting the feast when Rhiannon's rejected suitor turned up. Now, there's a custom at this time that people can ask for something from a noble person who's a king or a guest of honor or something at a big feast like this, to ask for a boon, if you like. It might be a gift, it might be a judgment on a wrong they've received. So this man, who is called Gwawl ap Cleed, remember that name, Gwawl ap Cleed, he approaches Pwyll and says he has a request. He doesn't actually say who he is. Rhiannon knows who he is, Pwyll doesn't. He says he has a request, and Pwyll makes a rookie mistake. He says, oh, sure, anything you want, just name it. Well, Gwawl is still in love with Rhiannon, so he says, I'll have Rhiannon for my wife, please, and this to be my wedding feast. Oops. At this point, Rhiannon steps in with a big plan. She tells Gwawl that he has to wait a year because this feast has already been given to Puig and his people. It can't be ungiven. It takes a long time to put such a big feast together. So let's get married this time next year. Gwawl agrees to this. But Rhiannon has an elaborate plan to trick him and marry Puig after all. Unfortunately, the plan, when they carry it out, results in a really brutal and frightening humiliation of Gwawl, which goes too far. So as we've learned yesterday, Rhiannon and Puig do eventually get married, and they have a son, Pryderi. A long time passes, and Pryderi grows into a man. He gets married, he has adventures, and Puig eventually dies. Rhiannon takes a new husband, Manawyddan fab Llŷr, and we finally made it to today's story. Manawyddan and Cigfa lived in the kingdom of Dyfed, if you could call it living. Cigfa was Manawyddan's daughter-in-law. She was the wife of Pryderi, Rhiannon's son. Things had been going badly in Dyfed. First, a strange mist came down, and when it cleared, all the people, all the servants and farmers and their farms and their livestock, all of Pryderi's warriors, all of that was gone. Only Manawyddan and Rhiannon and Cigfa and Pryderi were left in a completely desolate Dyfed. They spent the next few years in a bit of a daze. They hunted for their food and ate wild fruit and fish. When they got tired of that, they traveled to England and tried to earn their livings, but they were always unwelcome wherever they went. They'd set up shop, but they'd be too clever and they'd be chased away and threatened by the locals. In the end, they went back home to Dyfed, and just when they thought things couldn't get any worse, Pryderi foolishly entered a strange, enchanted fortress. Manawyddan warned him not to go in, but Pryderi was hot-headed and he didn't listen. Manawyddan knew better than to follow him, but when he told Rhiannon what had happened, she went and ran into the fortress calling out Pryderi's name, and it swallowed her up as well. And then it just disappeared, the whole fortress, as if it had never been there. So Manawyddan and Cigfa were stuck with each other. They tried to earn money again, but it was the same as before. They were chased away. But with the few coins they had, Manawyddan purchased some wheat, bags of wheat, and when they returned to Dyfed again, he planted it in 3 fields. Cigfa, always concerned about appearances, was horrified. She and Manawyddan were of noble birth, and no nobleman, she said, should dirty his hands with farming. But Manawyddan was more practical, and he just ignored her. He planted the 3 small fields and watched them sprout and ripen. Quite a good feeling. The crop was as good as any one you could imagine. And one day he said to Cigfa, "That first field is ready. Tomorrow I will harvest it." Next morning he was up at dawn, but he found a field of empty stalks. The grain was all gone. "Well," said Manawyddan, "tomorrow I will cut the second field." But the same thing happened. The grain had all been taken from the stalks. "Dear God," said Manawyddan loudly, "someone has ruined this kingdom, and now they have nearly ruined me." He went to check on the third field, and it was undisturbed. So Manawyddan decided that he would watch that night beside the field, and he'd try to catch the thief. He told Cigfa his plan, and he fetched his cloak and a sword and returned to the field. About midnight, he heard a lot of rustling, almost like a wind blowing the wheat stalks. It was mice. There were hundreds of them. His sword was no use against them, and he watched in horror as they climbed up the stalks of wheat and bit off the grain and carried it away. Horrible little creatures. They moved too fast to be caught, but then Manawyddan saw a fat one. It was much slower than the others, waddling away. He grabbed it, and he put it in his glove, tied the glove shut, and went home. He hung the glove on a peg by the fire, and he sat down by the fire with a sigh. "What's in the glove?" asked Kigva. "A thief," he growled. Kigva gave him a look. "How can there be a thief in your glove?" So he told her the whole story of how the third field had been ruined by mice. "I caught one thief," he said, "and in the morning I will hang it. And if I had caught them all, they would all be hanged." "Well, I can see why you're angry," said Kigva, "but it's far beneath your dignity, Lord, to handle vermin or to act as a hangman. It would be better to throw the filthy thing out and get a new glove, too." "I'd hang every last one if I could," he said, "but I can't. However, this one will see justice." "Fine," she replied. "I wasn't defending the mouse, only your reputation. Do as you please." Now, there was a hill behind the castle, the very same hill they'd been standing on the day that awful mist came down and took their beautiful kingdom away. When morning came, Manawyddan marched up the hill purposefully, and taking some sticks, he started building a wee gallows. He hadn't been at this long when he saw a man coming along the road. He appeared to be a young scholar, dressed in poor, patched garments, and they greeted one another. And Manawyddan remarked on how this visit was quite a surprise. No one but he and his friends had been seen in Dyfed for 7 years. The man gave him some story about how he was returning from England and was just passing through. "What is that you're building?" asked the scholar. "A gallows, to hang a thief who stole from me." "Surely you don't mean that mouse I see in your hand," said the scholar. "Isn't it a bit beneath you to be doing that? I'd say you should just let it go." But Manawyddan told him that justice must be served in his kingdom. Then the scholar said, "Look, I'll buy you the mouse's pardon with the last pound that I have so that you can save face." But Manawyddan refused. He turned to his work. The scholar went on his way. Just as he was finishing the last bits of the gallows, a priest on a horse rode into view. And Manawyddan greeted him courteously, and of course he also wanted to know Manawyddan's business with the gallows and the mouse, and he too was horrified that the Lord of Dyfed had lowered himself to such a task. He offered 3 pounds to ransom the mouse. Manawyddan thanked him, but he said no, it wasn't money he wanted, it was justice, and the priest went away defeated. Manawyddan now crafted a small noose, and he placed it around the mouse's neck, and he was just about ready to swing it when he saw the most amazing sight coming along the road. A bishop and a retinue, an entourage with guards on fine horses, servants, and a baggage train laden with chests full of the church's wealth. The conversation they had was becoming a bit tedious to Manawyddan by now, and when the bishop offered him 7 pounds for the mouse, Manawyddan just laughed. "Very well, we'll make it 24 pounds then, shall we?" said the bishop, full of confidence. "Nah, not for twice that," said Manawyddan. "In that case, look, take the horses and the treasure they're carrying." "For God's sake," said Manawyddan, "thanks, but no thanks." "Well," said the bishop, "name your price." "Let Rhiannon and Pryderi go free." "Done," said the bishop. "Not so fast. There's more. Remove the enchantment from Dyfed." "Ah, yes, all right. Only release the mouse." "Not yet," said Manawyddan. "First, I want to know who you are, who you really are, and I want to know who this mouse really is." "She's my wife." "Well, what's she doing here?" asked Manawyddan. And then the whole story came out. The man said, "My name is Llywyd. I put the enchantment on Dyfed in vengeance for the way Rhiannon and Pwyll mistreated my friend Gwawl. When we saw your wheat, my army thought it would be fun if I turned them into mice so that they could destroy it. Only on the third night, the wives wanted to join in, including my own wife, who's heavily pregnant. Now release her. No, I won't, said Manawyddan. Not until you swear never to put another enchantment on the kingdom. I swear. Now release my wife. No, there's more. You must swear that you will take no further revenge on Rhiannon or Pryderi, nor on me or any of our friends. Oh, you're a clever one, said the magician. If you had not said that, great trouble would have fallen on you. But I agree. Just give me back my wife. Not until I see Pryderi and Rhiannon standing here unharmed, said Manawyddan. And with that they appeared unharmed. Manawyddan released the mouse. Llywyd struck her with his wand and put her back in her own beautiful pregnant shape, and the kingdom of Dyfed was completely restored to its former glory. I love Manawyddan's calm cleverness and wisdom in this story, and his insistence on justice being done. These are traits that I also see in his Irish counterpart, Manannán. It's also interesting to see the story turn out to be the result of Pwyll and Rhiannon's earlier misstep. The trick they played on Gwawl needn't have turned so nasty. And come to that, Pwyll should have been more careful with his word in the first place. But then we wouldn't have such a good story. I also think that it's very like what we see with Manannán, that you wonder how far back it goes that Manawyddan is trying to undo all this bad magic that's been happening to them. So it's a really good story and worthy of some deep thought. So once again, a good new year to you, filled with luck and contentment. I'll see you tomorrow for one final session. Bye-bye.